Good morning and welcome back. I'm Natalie, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of a catch-up stream. So I'm going to be working with the images that we did from yesterday. And good morning, Tracy. So bear with me one moment just while I'm waiting for Facebook to update so I can see the video. You never know. Come on. So don't be afraid to say hi, and hopefully I will be able to see all comments. The YouTube ones I will be watching on the actual Facebook page, so there is going to be about a 30-second delay. So let's go into that one. Come on, let me watch. The iPad is not being the quickest today. There we go. So, morning Carol. Hi Heather. Thank you for joining us. And I don't think anybody else is. Let me just see if I can just change my view just a little. Get a little better. Okay. So, yesterday we put together this little kind of a layout that we had. Using some free stamps that I got from ScanCut and Papercraft, or with I should say, rather than from. So I thought we could discuss a couple of ideas that we can use to actually put this together. So I'm going to use my notebook and let's do a little bit of sketching before we get started. So I'm going to give it the name of Joy to the World. So, free stamps and die as well from ScanCut. And looking at this piece here, so I know that originally this is A6, but I might cut into it. So we could push this bit down so it's a little bit more square, but not quite square. So let's take it that way. And we've got our Joy to the World with our little bird. Doesn't have to be good. And there's our text. So what I'm thinking is it would be really nice to do some kind of border where we've got like the leaves to go around the outside. So either that we do it so that it goes top and bottom, or maybe down the sides as well. So let's have a look. I'm also thinking to make that a little bit easier to get off the mat, we could do some kind of frame. Or maybe put it on a mat. And then have it in a much larger card blank. So I just tend to do that with a little bit of a sideways V. And got the bottom. And then a little line just there. Thank you, Tracy. Yes, the notebook is a really useful idea as well. So down the bottom you see that you've got like a little materials and sections space that, so that if you want to plan your materials, might be that you need to go out and actually buy something. So if you find that you're missing something in your stash, then you can actually make a little note to yourself to actually go and get something. So that's one idea that we could have. Another one is that we keep it in this landscape format, like so, and let's put a simple matte nail on it. But then what we might do is, let's say we've got our little branch here, a little bird, and our text. And then what we might do is actually pull out another element from the same stamp set. So if I bring the stamps back in, we've got lots of different leafy stamps that we could use, or we could actually use something like our globe. Means we've got joy to the world, so that we've actually 3D that up. So that could go just there if we want to. Or we could still go for a circle and maybe do, we've got this little bauble stamp just here, so you could have a little ball hanging, and another one, and another one. The choice is yours. Now if you want to turn it into a vertical card, again we can look at our cropping. And we don't necessarily have to keep all of this image in, so we could actually come in a little from this edge here. So that's, I'm still going to stick to an A size card. So this would be A5. And we can actually put like a central column down here. And then have our joy to the world section over the top. And this time we might go, okay, well, we'll put a mat on it, but that mat might have our leaves coming around this edge here. And we might put that as a pattern in the background, so that we're going to let our joy to the world kind of come to the forefront. So hopefully you can see that all right. If not, I will just bring that up a little bit so you can see that a bit clearer. And there we go. No, Carol, I haven't had my letter yet. I'm still waiting for a couple of letters actually from different people, so it may just be that Mr. Posty's being awfully busy. Okay, so decision time. Which one are we going to go for? And I think I'm going to go for this one, because this one here is going to feed a bit into what I'm going to do tomorrow with the cracker. So I'll kind of cover how we do this outside edge tomorrow. So rather than repeating myself, I'm going to go for this one. Okay, so first of all, because we are going to want to create a mat for the background for this piece, you're kind of going to start with cropping this image first, so that you have the measurements to work from. Okay, so I'm just going to use my trimmer for that. And morning, Mum. Okay, so I'm going to crop and actually cut into my design a little. So I'm going to go just there. Now, because it's the same design rotated, we can measure this side by this one, if that makes sense. So you're going to try and cut the same amount off the design this side as this side. So this second leaf just here was just touching our cut line. So let's go for that there. And we should have something that looks like that. Now, if you're thinking that your stamping is a little bit off, you can always just straighten it up slightly at this point. But I think, judging by this bit here, that's alright. And I'm going to go with it at that. So let's take our two waste pieces away. Thank you, Tracy, for popping up the link for the notebook. Okay, so I'm going to do a very quick measure. So width wise we've got 10.1 centimetres, so I can actually use my notebook to help me out with it, and I'm just going to do a little box that represents our piece, and we can go, that distance there is 10.1 centimetres. And again, let's rotate that, and we've got a measurement of 105 for the height. So when we start on our ScanNCut, that's the sizes we're going to start with, and then we can offset and work outwards from there. So make sure that everything stays in proportion. So let's break up the ScanNCut first. Okay. Hi Linda. Yeah, it's that time of year, isn't it? We're quite fortunate to get ours done nice and early, so all done. Okay, so we're going to go to pattern first of all, and let's make sure I change the camera. There we go. So we're nice and zoomed in, and we're going to start off with our basic shape, and we're almost square, so I'm going to say square. Now if we use our little ratio button just here and make sure that turns blue, we can edit our height and width independently. So we know our height is 105 and our width is 101. Nice and easy. And we only need one, and we can add that to our map. Now because we're going to be working outwards from that point, I'm going to bring that into the middle of my mat. Very roughly. It doesn't have to be bang in the centre, but it's going to give us room to move outwards. So now we can go to Edit, Object Edit, and we can go Offset. Now this is how much border you want to go around the outside of your piece. So you want it to be fairly significant. So I'm going to go up to at least 3 mil, so that you are getting a good border to start with. I might even go a little bit bigger. Let's go 3.5. So that's going to put 3.5 mil all around that edge. Oh, morning Joyce. And thank you for seeing if I'm alright. So I'm going to go OK. Now that original rectangle, which is the stamped image size, is still going to be there and still selected. So if we go OK, we can delete that one out now, because everything else we're going to do to this box. And go OK, and we're going to go to Add, Pattern, Designs, and let's go into this one. And I want kind of a leafy design, so let's go for A027. And again, if you want to make a note in your notebook, you can do. So it's useful then if ever you need to go back and remake something, that you've actually made that note. So 3.5 mil offset, and A027.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Go away, Siri.
Okay.
Okay. Now my Facebook has gone a bit mad. So I just want to check that, is everything okay at that end? Oh, there we go. Mine's just come back. Let's just see how it's going. So everybody else heard me say Siri okay, it's just my iPad that's gone a bit mad. I can work with that. So obviously we need this to be much smaller, and we can go down to 3 centimeters before it will beep at us and complain. If we go OK at that point and OK again, you'll notice I'm only going to keep the number 1 and that this is changed, and that's just because it's rotated slightly. That's fine. I'm going to bring that one down, and you want it so that it overlaps your square. And now you can start to think about it when it's actually going to be cut. So if we go down too far, you run the risk of your little stem pieces being a bit fragile. So if you were to 3D this up, you won't want to shrink those too much. But if you're going to put it down onto your surface, you can get away with a little more because you can still use some glue behind each of the leaves. Okay. I'm just going to come back out and go back in and just see if this is working, because I think my iPad is playing up. Come on. Got to love Facebook. Come on. Okay. Try again. So I'm going to go into Edit, Object Edit, Resize, and I'm going to take this down slightly. So all the time I'm kind of looking at the stems, thinking, is it going to be able to cut those successfully? And obviously the thicker your material, the thinner you can get those stems. I'm going to go OK. Now another way of helping you build in some strength into your design is that if we actually rotate our shapes so that we actually give them a bit of a wider joining area. So I'm going to use the rotate function. I'm going to start off by using 10 degrees, and then I can fine tune it with 1. Okay. So when you're happy with that, we're going to go to duplicate, and we can add. Let's start with one side. So I'm going to say that I'm going to have 5, and I'm going to move this one over here, and the next one, then the next one, then the next one, and then finally this one. Okay, so you should have something that looks like that. Let me see if I can just get that a little bit clearer. And yes, Deb, you did a marvellous job stepping in for me on Tuesday. So thank you very much. It was very much appreciated. Tuesday was one of those days that was just an awful lot of stress. Oh dear. So I was very grateful for the assistance. Okay, so because I want everything bar 1 on a mat, it's easy enough to go select all and then just tap the thing that you don't want to have selected. I'm going to go OK. Then we can go into move, we can go into align, and we can say, okay, I want all those to line up in a nice straight line. So in this case, because it's going to be welded to the bottom edge, I'm going to say align to bottom. And then we've got our distribute option. So just there, that's going to make sure that we have a nice even repeat of our shape. So you should now have something that looks like that. I'm going to go OK, OK, Object Edit and group it so that it keeps all those elements together. Then I can go back to Move and I can just nudge that up with the keys rather than trying to drag it. And I want something that looks a bit like that. So at this point we can go OK, and you might be tempted to go, okay, I've done that row, let's weld that and then job done. But what I wanted to show you is actually, if we then go into Object Edit and we go to Number, we can actually put in our 4 sides like so. So this one you are going to want to rotate 180. So tap your 90 twice. This one we're just going to tap it once. And this one we're going to go 90 in the opposite direction. So you have something that looks like that. So I'm going to go OK. And I'm going to go back to Move. Now our left hand edge for this top row was lined up to the base of our square, so I'm just going to go and nudge these around so they more or less match that, and also nudge them inwards so that they overlap the edge. We can then move to the next one. Again, that's going to nudge that way, so it's going to nudge down a little bit. And this one moves quite a bit, and again we can nudge that in. So you should then have something that looks like this with all our stems kind of moving inwards, and I think these side ones just need to come in just a little more. And we'll go OK. Yeah, I wish I could say that, Tracy. I wish I could say that's it all done now, but by the sounds of it, no, we will have to have another one. Yay. So I'm going to go and select all, Object Edit, and then this middle button is how we weld all of our shapes together. So we can weld those, and it's going to give us a preview. Now if at this point you think something that's not quite right, so you might find that one of your corners you're not happy with, then cancel it. Don't just do it, because once you hit that OK button you can't step back. So I'm going to go cancel that and just see what's going on in here. So if we go into Move, we can use our magnifying glass to actually zoom in. And if I just tap off to one side, then we can actually see our design a little clearer. So if we look at this top edge, which was joined how we wanted it, we've got a little sliver of that leaf showing. But just here, if we look, it's got a little bit more. So I'm just going to nudge that one step back that way. Now this one almost looks like it needs a little bit more, so that can do one step this way. And we can use our scroll button to actually move down the mat. So if we look top to bottom, that is about right. So maybe down just one notch. There we go. You also want to check this edge here is lined up, and I think it just needs to nudge that way to line up with that square. That one lines up. This one just needs to sneak up just a tidge. And there we go. So we can go back to OK, back to Select All, back to Object Edit and Weld. And let's have another look at that preview. So that is looking pretty good. Now, just going to see if I can get that any further in. That looks a little bit better. Try and remove some of the glare off it for you. So when you're happy, we can go OK, and then we can actually move that around. Now if you do see any weird looking areas, you can always just patch that up with a smaller square. So I'm going to move that up there, go OK, and that's going to move, and so I can get to my magnifying glass, and just here there's a little bit of something weird going on. So we can see that we can see a tail of this last leaf, which is a bit weird, but how can we fix it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in another square, and I'm going to try and line it up to this corner just in here. So if we go OK, 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 we can go to add. I'm going to go pattern, pattern, basic shapes, square, and set, because we know what our centre square is actually bigger than that 100 by 100. So now I can go into edit, move, and again I'm going to zoom in to make my life a little easier, and I'm going to nudge this so that it moves in line with the edge there, and this way, so it's in line with that edge there. And I think just there would be just the ticket. So I can go OK, OK, select all, OK, and fingers crossed this will work properly. And that looks like it's sorted it out. So we can go OK, OK, and OK. So now you might go, okay, I've done all that work, I've added on all those leaves, now I have no idea how big that piece is. So if we go back to edit, object edit, and resize, we can make a note of how big that piece is, because we're going to need to find a piece of card that will fit it. So it's 159 by 154. So it's quite big. So it's not going to fit into an A5, so we are looking at A4 or a 12 by 12. Let's go for a nice green colour. And I have lots of tips, Heather. Lots and lots. And it's one of those things that the more you use your machine, the more you'll get used to working with the way that it thinks. I think one of the biggest issues that people have is they try and make it work how a human being does it, and it's just not. It's a machine. So you want to pick whichever side you want your card to show, so that I tend to usually cut good side up, just because I do use a lot of texture cardstock. So if you cut good side down, don't always get the amount of adhesion that you want to your mat. Let's move my notebook out of the way, and then I can change view. So we're going to be going for this green here, which I think is going to bring out these darker shades in our leaves really nicely. Okay. Now, just because the cutting mat I'm using at the moment is a little bit thick on the leverage, I'm just going to move that out of the way, because you want to try and keep your tray nice and level so that it feeds your mats through nicely and easily. And fingers crossed it will load first time. I can be hopeful. Come on. It played me up yesterday too. But if it does play you up, it's just a little nail file on that leading edge and it'll be fine and dandy. There we go. Back to close cam. Oh. Okay, if it says that and it says the mat won't be recognised, usually what that means is there's something on your scanner. But sometimes it can just be that it hasn't got it in quite the right place. So let's try again, because I don't really want to have to clean your scanner. Come on. Or do the other option, which is, as it's a duo, well, it's a super duo mat, to give it its full name. We can go from the other end, just while it's misbehaving. So yeah, one of the things on the agenda this weekend is a bit of maintenance, just to give it a good clean. So if that is something you would like to see a fresh video on, then please do let me know and I will do that. There we go. So let's go OK. OK again. OK again. OK again. We want to cut. Now, blades. Because we've got those little fine details, I'm going to hop to the vinyl blade. Now, if you don't have it, you can do it with just the standard auto blade. But if you usually cut at any pressure above -9, you're going to want to lower it down to that -9 just to take a little bit of pressure off. So with that in place, I have my pressure at -6 for my vinyl blade. Speed 2, I might just slow that down slightly because of those fine details. So that can go down to 1. And let's go. I should be able to just rotate that slightly. There we go. That way. Just a little. So you can actually watch it cut. Yep, we can do a maintenance stream at the weekend. Cleaning and resticking tips, always useful. Okay, I'm going to be the first person to hold up my hand and say I don't very often restick my mats. But they do have a life cycle. Typically, if I'm resticking a mat, I do like touch-ups, if that makes sense. So I will just do small areas where any adhesive was lifted. Okay, so the mat's moving sideways as it's cutting. No, it is not calibration, believe it or not. Calibration is where, let's say you're drawing a circle and your start point isn't lining up with the end point. Then that's the time that you need to recalibrate. Basically, it's recalibration is reteaching the machine where the blade is. In terms of your mats moving sideways, however, that is more of a roller issue. So, as in these black rollers here. So what you want to be doing there is getting a little bit of rubbing alcohol onto a cotton bud and just hold the dampened cotton bud, and it's only damp, it's not wet, it's damp, and just press your load mat button and your rollers will spin, and it's a nice easy way of cleaning them all. So trying to get round and underneath by lifting the actual roller. In terms of rubber mats, what I typically do is I use a baby wipe that is wrapped around a scraper and then allow them to dry for a good hour before usage. So typically what I would do is give them a good scrub before starting my session for that day, and by the time that I've set up my project, worked out everything that I want to do, they're typically ready to go. Yep, Tracy, cleaning the rollers is really easy to do. If at some point they do need replacing, I know at the moment it's taking a little bit longer to get the parts, but they are available. With your artistic mats, you don't use a baby wipe or anything that contains moisturiser anywhere near them. So if you've got your hands moisturised, stay well away from your artistic mats, because the moisturiser can actually dissolve the adhesive on your mat. My cuts are slightly off on a ScanNCut calibration or something else. Okay, if they are massively off, it's a call to brother. If they're slightly off, then what you can do is do ScanNCut data and then nudge it slightly to get that centering spot on. Unfortunately, you won't find that calibration really helps with that. It is literally does the start of the cut align to the end of the cut, and that is pretty much how calibration will work. Now, the baby wipes you can use on the rubber mats. The artistic mats, you don't use baby wipes, you don't use moisturiser or anything like that anywhere near them, because it will just literally take the adhesive off the mat. If at some point you decide that you want to actually get the adhesive off a artistic mat, you can actually use that as a way of doing it. And then reapply a new sheet. On my brother mats, what I tend to use is a zig glue pen rather than a stencil glue. I just find personally that I didn't have the results I wanted with stencil glue. Other people will find that it will work the other way around for them. They'll get on with the stencil glue and not with zig. But what I would say is, if you're doing zig and you're using the broader tip to literally cover the mat, then let it dry completely, get a t-shirt, go over the top of the mat with the t-shirt before you put paper anywhere near it. Otherwise what you can find is that the paper will actually weld to the mat rather than cutting and releasing nicely. So just detacking it, that initial bit, is just going to make your life a little easier. Okay, so now we can peel off our card, and there's our mat ready to go. I'm just going to set that card piece to one side, because we can always use that to do our layering for sentiments and things like that. Another top tip, use a metal spatula. So the reason I say that is, if you're using a plastic one, you tend to go up to that edge and you kind of hit it instead of getting underneath it. Whereas if you've got metal, you can get underneath. So let me just see if I can tweak that back down. There we go. So if I show you that again. So if you've got plastic, you tend to hit that edge, whereas metal's going to get underneath. So especially if you're doing something that has quite a bit of fine detail like these here, and just gently coax it off the mat. With stronger pieces it's pretty easy to just rip it off, but for something like this, just take your time and just work from the inside out. Okay, so once you've released your first side, you can start to get underneath it a little bit more. and as you'll hear, it doesn't take very much just to start lifting those off then. So I'm just working from the tip of the leaf back towards that stem on that side. Being right-handed, if you're left-handed you'll work the other way around. And there we go. So you've got that piece there. And there's a couple of little pieces that will come off the mat, but you can use your lint roller on that. And unload the cut mat for now, because we can always come back and do that later if we need to. So now we have our mat and our image. Let's just see if I can get that to pick that up a little bit better. It's gone a bit blurry. That's a bit better. Okay. So to adhere the two together, I'm just going to use some double-sided today. As some of you will know, we seem to think that my hands are a reaction to vinyl. So I'm staying away from things like PVA and vinyl work, which could be interesting considering I really need to do some vinyl work later in the week. But we'll see how it goes. Usually what I would say with adhesive is I would apply it to the thicker element, but just because we kind of want to make sure we go edge to edge, it's a bit more difficult to do. Those of you who missed yesterday's stream, the card that I used, well, paper really, is 140 GSM. So, as you usually find that the colour card in your stash is usually typically around 220 to 250. Okay, so I can peel that off. It's definitely going to be pokey tool day today. Cut my nails last night, that was not a good idea. There we go. Now another top tip is where you need to get your alignment spot on. Is you just need a little wet glue. So as I said, I'm staying away from the PVA, so instead I'm going to be using a little bit of water-based Tombow Mono. And that's just going to give me a little bit of wiggle room. So I just go across my tape with a few dots. So long as it stays on the tape and not on the paper, you should still get a nice smooth finish without any wrinkling. Sorry to hear that, Thea, about the trolley cleaner and things kind of interacting. I know mine are driving me up the wall, so much so that I actually have a telephone consultation booked for tomorrow. So if I do suddenly disappear off stream, that's why. So I'm just trying to get this in the middle of that square. And there we go. And I'm just going to use my pokey tool just to pop out any of the little sections that didn't initially pop through. And then I can just take those from the back. we actually managed to get some hemp hand cream, and that seems to be working wonders in terms of the dryness and the stinginess of it. But just doesn't seem to be clearing up, so I thought it was time to go. Actually, I think they just need a little help, because it can be a bit uncomfortable when you're working with your hands a lot, like we do as crafters. Okay, so nearly got all these little pieces out. Like so. And let's get a little card to put that on. I'm thinking rather than going A5, let's go up a size, and we have some 10 by 7s, which are nice and big, and that's going to work like that. Now, backing paper wise, let's see what we've got. That red is quite bright, so I want something that's kind of focused more on the green. Let's go for this one. So I have to say, having the 12 by 12 trimmer really does help a lot of things. Let's slide that under there. I'm going to start by cutting just a strip to actually seat this upon, and I think I'm going to go there. And pop the rest on one side for another project. Now if you want to distress this, you can do. Let me just see if I can find my distressing tool. Just have a tendency to slip down, so maybe I can't find it. And it looks like it's dropped down in my tool holder. Oh well. So distressing tool, what does it do? It means that you can actually ruffle these edges up, which is really good if you want to get some texture in. Or you can use a little bit of a textured stamp, or even a nice mixed media stencil. So if we look at that with that over the top, it might be good to just do something in here to kind of lift that up a little bit. So I'm going to grab a little sponge, and let's go for the squid ink. So this is going to be quite subtle, it's not going to be bright. We're just going to lift that colour very, very slightly. So hopefully you can start to see that. And I'm kind of going over that Merry Christmas, so it kind of highlights that too. Let's move that down just a little so that we've got some that's going to go under our leaves, like so. And then we can get our piece to come back in. And then look at this top section, and I'm going to come back down this section here. So again, we've got another Merry Christmas just at that bottom. And I'm going to do the same again, so over the Merry Christmas. and then the line above, like so. So that is just white squid ink, which is a hybrid ink pad, so it dries really quick, which is good because that means that we can put that straight onto our project. And I can just trim up the rest of it at the end. So this does have a texture to it, this particular piece, so do make sure that you apply a good coverage of glue. Flip that over. Make sure you've got your card the right way round. The numbers of times I've done that. So then go down. And just move that down there. And like so. So with our next piece, we can actually go and apply glue to all the little leaves as well, so that they stick nicely to the card. So if you want to go through and actually shape all these and have them kind of loose and sticking up, you can do. I'm just going to go nice and flat just for time today. Obviously, if you imagine embossing all these, it's going to take a little bit of time. But a nice large embossing tool will help you do that. And I'm just going to do a little bit of glue on that back panel, like so. Will I do this without sticking my fingers in it at some point? Probably not. And there we go. I'm just going to bring it down underneath that Merry Christmas. There we go. So you could grab a gold gel pen or a white gel pen. I've got a nice fine 0.6 white gel, and we can actually do a little bit of detailing if you want to. So just going to do just a few veins. Do you have to do this? Nope. What I will say is, if you work quickly, you will keep a smoother line than if you try and do it nice and slowly. And all the time when you're doing this, that glue is setting so that we can trim off that bottom end in a minute. You can also do some little stitched effects if you want to. I don't mind freehanding these, but if you want a template to help you, then if you get one of the Pretty Gets Gritty drawing guides, you can use that to kind of help you do a nice dash line that's going to be nice and regular. Yep, the mats are really good. How would you design an envelope to fit the card? So, easiest way is to take your card shape whatever that may be. So let's say this one. You're going to rotate it 45 degrees so that it's on the diagonal, and use a set square to help you do that. Then that triangle there, that and that triangle there, then measure across, so edge to edge, to give you your size of your paper. So then you would score your card shape into it. Then with this side here, what you would want to do is actually take this out a little, like so that you get your cut and your corners covered. And you would want to cut off a nice rounded section up here. Otherwise, you can find with cards like this where you've got a rectangle that your point actually comes and extends down this way, and you want to stop it before it gets that far. So if you go for a nice rounded shape like so. For the side bits, you can still leave those pointy, so to speak. And then this bottom section here, so if you imagine that you've got your tab coming out this way, if you were to leave that pointy again, it would go too far. But what you actually want it to do is stop kind of at this middle point, so you actually cut it across in a straight line. Now, on your actual machine, you actually have an envelope template, or 2 or 3 that you can use. So what I would say is, if you create your envelope first and then make the card fit in terms of the built-in designs, you'll find that much easier. Another way is, if you don't have enough paper to do the kind of 45-degree angle, then nice and simply, piece of card that is slightly wider than your card, but you want it so it's got enough of a distance at the bottom to do a flap that's going to come up to about there, and another one is going to come over that and down to about here, and you can create yourself a nice little wallet envelope. So hopefully that's kind of given you a bit of a quick overview of envelopes. I think we did do a video way back with envelopes, not on the CM 300. Okay. I thought there was one hiding on that one, but I will, just in case you ever want to use it again, do make sure you save it. Save it to USB because it's easier, and then I can always reorganize it after. Let's have a quick look and see what we've got. I know it's hiding somewhere. Ding, ding. But there should be one that looks like a little kind of up and over envelope that you can use. See, like this one you could potentially use, but it's going to be a bit funny with those corners. I know I've seen it somewhere. What I'll do is I'll go for a hunt and I'll see if I can put it up for you everywhere to find it. Because I think once we get to this far, you definitely don't have those. But I thought there was one basic one that was hiding away somewhere, and I was like, oh, that's what that's for. The other option is, if you're going to your basic shapes, you can actually use, just went past it, this one here. So BAA103, and you should have that on your 300 too. And that will basically do your little envelope for you. You could also use, sorry, just not the camera, 106, but you might want to just tweak again a couple of those corners. You've got BAA120 that you could potentially use too. You might just want to add on a little semicircle or an oval onto that top edge. And also this one up here, 121, you can use that same way. And I think that's it. You can also use that one, so that's A172. That would do for an envelope. And that's your lot. So hopefully you've got at least one of those on your 300 that would work. So let me just, so going to basic shapes, and basically it's anything that looks like it's got a four-way fold. I'll go back down to where I was saying. So you've got A103, we do A106, A120 with the extra bit added on, 121. You could kind of manipulate 129, but 121 would be easier from that point. You've got 131 that's going to give you a nice pointed edge, and again you might want to just tweak that with a corner rounder just to round it off nicely. And you've got 172, so again you might want to use a corner rounder on that one. So lots of different ways that we can use our basic shapes. So I think a lot of them tend to get overlooked because we're always going square, rectangle, circle, and instead of actually thinking, oh, what can we use that shape for? So one of the really good exercises that I like students to do in class is to actually take a shape and think of the different ways that they could use it in their design. So obviously 171 that you can see there would make a great banner, but also if you fold it along that center line horizontally, you can actually use it as a hinge and do it that way. You could use it as a page flag by folding it in half vertically. Something like 170, which is in the top right corner, that could be the start of a tag design. So don't be afraid to experiment with them. If you want to do something like putting a hole in, then what you need to do is just overlay the circle over the top, don't weld it, and that will actually cut the circle out of your tag. And then you can use your reinforcers, so 176, 177 and 178 are there to actually help you reinforce your designs, but you could actually use certainly 178 as a frame by using a larger scale. So lots of fun things that you can do just by playing with the basic shapes, especially in this bottom section where they're a bit more intricate. So that's just crying out to be made into a card blank, as is that one, so that you can actually then go and add in your little elements down the side. Your zigzags are good if you're then going to do something with little diamonds that's going to reinforce that. If you do it as a kind of on its own, it doesn't quite look right. It needs that little something adding on top. If you want to do a faux envelope, so if you're doing a design where you want to do some mail art inspired things, then if you use 155, then you can actually just score along that edge here to actually make a faux envelope. And you are welcome, Louise. So hopefully that's given you lots of ideas. Tomorrow I'm going to be finishing off the crackers. So we're going to be looking at creating a decorative border from scratch. So rather than using the borders that are built in the machine, we're going to be using the design in a similar way to what we did today, but then we're actually going to enclose it in a frame so that we can easily apply that to our design. Take care for now, and I will see you tomorrow at 11. If you need me in the meantime, the only time I'm not available today is between 2 and 3. So if you do message me during that point, I won't be replying until after 3. Take care for now, and bye.